You can now type a single sentence and generate a photorealistic city in a fraction of a second. The machine can build the roads, light the buildings, and render the atmosphere before you even finish your coffee. But when the mechanical labor of creation happens instantly, the question of what gives the final product its value remains. For decades, creative value was deeply tied to scarcity. An artist's worth was measured by the hours they spent mastering specialized software, the physical cameras they operated, and the painstaking manual techniques they perfected over years. Generative AI collapsed that timeline. Tools available right now fold ideation, storyboarding, visual effects, and final rendering into a single text prompt. Professional-grade execution is universally accessible to anyone with an internet connection. The physical studio used to act as a barrier to entry. It required massive budgets, large teams, and expensive equipment just to get a project off the ground. Now, those barriers have been replaced by a browser window. Because mechanical execution is now essentially infinite and free, the traditional production skills that creatives used to rely on no longer function as an economic moat. The ability to execute a task is no longer scarce. Relying entirely on algorithms for execution creates a different kind of scarcity, a lack of legal ownership. Generating an image or a video without meaningful human intervention exposes a brand to immediate liabilities. This diagram illustrates the recent Bart's versus Anthropic settlement. Anthropic agreed to pay authors $1.5 billion after downloading hundreds of thousands of pirated books to train their models. That massive financial penalty effectively closed the door on unauthorized data scraping, establishing a strict liability precedent for using shadow libraries to train models. In early 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review Thaler versus Perlmutter. By letting the lower court ruling stand, they affirmed that any work created autonomously by artificial intelligence is strictly ineligible for copyright protection. The U.S. Copyright Office maintains a rigid standard. Authorship requires a human being exercising intent, emotional expression, and intellectual choices. A prompt alone does not meet that threshold. If a company assumes that machine-generated content is automatically theirs to use, they are operating in a legal void. They are investing resources into assets they do not own, cannot protect, and cannot exclusively license. Surviving this shift requires professionals to step away from being pure asset makers and become directors of systems. The market is now demanding the AI Auteur, a creative director who manages the algorithm rather than competing with it. To satisfy authorship laws, directors implement a human-AI-human workflow, starting with human ideation, using AI for drafts, and concluding with meaningful human editing. Securing copyright requires logging initial prompts and tracking iterations to prove human intent, before tagging assets in a rights management system. Machine output is inherently unownable. It is only through rigorous, heavily documented human direction that a generated file converts into protected intellectual property. The risk isn't entirely legal. If consumers recognize a brand's visuals as generic, unedited AI output, the content feels inauthentic. The brand loses its distinct identity, and the audience loses trust. The true craft is bridging that gap. It's the ability to take a specific human intuition, an emotion, or a distinct visual vibe, and translate that feeling into precise algorithmic direction that the machine can execute. This hyper-imagination allows a single individual to craft highly specific aesthetic fusions. Visual languages and complex lighting models that previously required massive research and development budgets can now be rendered and iterated in real time. The playing field has leveled entirely. A solo creator, armed with the right models and a defined vision, can produce the daily output volume of an entire legacy production studio. When every professional in the market has access to the exact same infinite generation tools, the execution itself holds zero premium. The uniqueness of human taste is the only economic differentiator left. Executing this kind of work across a fragmented mess of text, audio, and video generators creates a complicated chain of rights. Different platforms have different terms of service, leading to layered licensing vulnerabilities that can paralyze a marketing campaign. Creators and legal teams have to abandon scattered apps. They need unified environments where ideation, generation, and compliance exist together in a single, unbroken workflow. This architectural model demonstrates Talent Lens. It acts as a central compliance hub, integrating automated rights management directly into the creative generation pipeline. Legal teams set automated guardrails, so before reaching a final folder, AI outputs automatically inherit correct copyright statuses. Defending intellectual property now depends on securing the digital environment where the algorithm operates. Fighting the algorithm is less effective than controlling the systems that govern its output. This automation of production presents a paradox. By removing the physical and mechanical barriers to creating art, technology has forced us to return to our core human capabilities, vision and judgment. Predictive algorithms can process billions of data points to render flawless visuals in seconds. They can synthesize light, mimic film green, and generate complex soundscapes. But they completely lack the capacity for emotional resonance. The machine will execute absolutely anything you ask of it, but only the human creator can decide what actually matters.